The Assassins, aka Nizari Ismailis, were a heretical group of Shiite Muslims who were powerful in Persia and Syria from the 11th century CE until their defeat at the hands of the Mongols in the mid-13th century CE. Secure in their fortified hilltop castles, they became infamous for their strategy of singling out opposition figures and murdering them, usually in knife-wielding teams. The group was known as the Assassins by their enemies in reference to their use of hashish, assassin being a corruption of the Arabic hasisi, hashish eater, and so the name has since come to be associated with their chief modus operandi, the act of murder for political or religious purposes. The Nizari Ismailis continue to exist as a branch of Islam today. The assassin name. The Nizari Ismailis ate powdered hemp leaves, hashish, which contain a natural psychoactive, mind-altering, drug, reportedly doing so before they went on an assassination mission. The name assassin in English comes from the Latin term assassinus, which is a corruption of the Arabic words hasisi, al-hashishiyun or hashishin, meaning hashish eater. As the Nizari Ismailis used the strategy of assassination so often, the name medieval Arabs used to describe their drug habits became synonymous with the act of murdering a political or religious opponent. The use of drugs by the assassins may have been a way for their enemies to explain their extraordinary abilities and willingness to die for their cause. Alternatively, they may never have used any such stimulants and their reputation as drug users was rather a fictional demonization or invented excuse for their unnaturally high success rate in killing people and the almost complete ineffectiveness of anyone to stop them. Heretical beliefs. The Ismailis were a Shiite Muslim sect formed in the 8th century CE after they split from other Muslims over their adherence to Ismail, d. 760 CE, the eldest son of the sixth Imam, leaders of the faith after the Prophet Muhammad, Jafar al-Sadiq, d. 765 CE. The Ismailis believed that Ismail, despite predeceasing his father, had already been nominated by the latter as his successor. Therefore, the next, seventh, Imam was Ismail's son Muhammad al-Mahdi, as opposed to the Orthodox Shiite support for Ismail's brother Musa al-Kazim, d. 799 CE. For this reason, the Ismailis are often referred to as the Seveners. The Ismailis awaited the arrival of the Mahdi or the rightly guided one, who would restore peace and justice, and signal the arrival of the 괍ᴜ, the bringer of the resurrection. The Ismailis were, then, seen as heretics by other Muslim groups, not only by other Shiite Muslims but also the Sunnis of the Abbasid Caliphate, 750-1258 CE, based at Baghdad. In the late 11th century CE, the Ismailis themselves split into two groups after a dynastic dispute and their disappointment of the Ismaili-run Fatimid Caliphate, 909-1171 CE, then based at Cairo, to progress their ambition to dominate all of the Muslim world. The eastern-based branch of the sect, the Nizari Ismailis, were named after their preferred candidate for caliph, Abu Mansur Nizar, 1047-1097 CE. The Nizaris were more militant than their rival Ismaili branch, and it was they who became known as the Assassins. The Assassin Territories. The Nizari Ismailis, first led by a missionary from Egypt, Hassan ibn al-Sabah, circa 1048-1124 CE, set up bases in Iran and formed a new political religious community much like the European orders of medieval knights. Members were educated, trained, and initiated, then ranked according to their knowledge, reliability, and courage. All members swore absolute obedience and loyalty to the order's leader. The sect grew and eventually managed to acquire a string of hilltop castles between 1130 and 1151 CE. Many strongholds were located in northern Syria in the Jabal Ansariya region, then a border zone with the Syrian Crusader states. These acquisitions included the fortress town of Masyaf in the Orontes Valley of Syria, taken circa 1141 CE, which effectively became the Nizari capital of an assassin mini-state in Syria. The failure of the Second Crusade, 1147-49 CE, to retake Edessa from Muslim control and the destruction of two armies commanded by the German king Conrad III, 1138-1152 CE, and Louis VII, king of France, or 1137 to 1180 CE, permitted the Nizari Ismailis to remain unchallenged in northern Syria even if they did occasionally pay tribute to the Crusader states to maintain their isolation or even support them in the wars against the Sunni Muslims of the region. The Assassination Strategy. The assassins did not enjoy a great military strength, and so their strategy of targeting specific and powerful opponents was a good one. The weapon of choice for assassination was almost always the knife, and the mission was usually carried out by a small team, sometimes in disguise as beggars, ascetics, or monks. The assassination was often planned to be carried out in a crowded location to maximize the political and religious consequences of the act. The assassins were not expected to survive their mission and were known as fidain, sing. Fidai, or suicide commandos. That men were willing to die for the old man of the mountain is clear, but the reasons why are not. Marco Polo, 1254 to 1324 CE, the Venetian explorer, offers the following explanation in his travels, an account of his adventures across Asia in the last quarter of the 13th century CE, information which may also explain the real use of hashish amongst the assassins. The targets. Infamous victims of the assassins included the great and powerful vizier of Baghdad, Nizam al-Mulk, murdered on October 14, 1092 CE. Another successful target, and the first Christian victim, was Raymond II, the Count of Tripoli, in 1152 CE. Raymond, or 1137 to 1152 CE, had probably upset the assassins by granting the Knights Hospitaller a swathe of land near their base in the Nizari Mountains in Syria. The murder brought a massacre of all indigenous Easterners in the county of Tripoli in a crude and unsuccessful attempt to find the guilty parties. A third notable victim was, on April 28, 1192 CE, Conrad of Montforat. Conrad, made king of the Kingdom of Jerusalem just a few days before, was stabbed by a double team of assassins one night as he walked home from dinner in Tyre. The assassins had been disguised as monks and had caught Conrad off guard by showing him a letter before fatally stabbing him. Richard I the Lion-Hearted, of England, or 1189 to 1199 CE, was accused by his detractors of even paying for the deed as the Third Crusade, 1189 to 1192 CE, fizzled out to an inconclusive end, and the Westerners squabbled amongst themselves as to who should rule what in the Middle East. Sometimes the assassins were so effective that nobody was quite sure it was they who had perpetrated the crime. One such victim was Maudud, the Atabeg of Mosul, who was attacked in a courtyard while walking home from prayers at the Grand Mosque of Damascus on October 2, 1113 CE. The single assassin approached the Atabeg asking for alms and then grabbed his belt and stabbed him twice in the stomach. The assassin was caught, beheaded, and his body burned, but it was only a suspicion that he had been sent by the Nizari Ismailis. One wonders, then, just how many mysterious deaths might really be attributed to the assassins and, conversely, how many deaths which had no connection with them at all were credited to the secret sect. One near victim was Saladin, Sultan of Egypt and Syria, or 1174 to 1193 CE. Saladin, a Sunni Muslim, had earned the assassins' wrath by publicly proclaiming that all Muslim heretics would be crucified. The assassins responded in their tried and tested way. Twice, though, assassins failed to kill their target. First, in 1175 CE, a group of 13 failed to get close to their victim, and the second time, in 1176 CE, for assassins only managed to pierce Saladin's cuirass and slash a cheek before they were butchered by the Sultan's bodyguard. Saladin responded emphatically to these attempts by first ravaging the countryside around Masyaf and besieging the castle for a week. Then the campaign was strangely abandoned. An explanation for this turnaround may have been the story that assassins had stolen into Saladin's tent at night, but, instead of killing him, they had left a knife under his pillow as a warning of what so easily might have been. Nur ad-Din, governor of Aleppo and Edessa from 1146 to 1174 CE, received a similar warning. An alternative version to this story, which comes from an Ismaili text, has an assassin leave a poisoned cake under the Sultan's pillow with a sinister note saying, "You are in our power." Yet another version of the events has an emissary from the assassins granted an audience with Saladin, who stood safely behind two of his most trusted bodyguards. The emissary then asked the guards would they kill the Sultan if he asked them to, and they replied, certainly. A little fanciful perhaps that the Sultan's entourage would be so infiltrated by assassins, but the morale of all three versions of the tale is clear: no person could escape the assassins indefinitely if they had selected you as their target. Whatever the true version, Saladin got the message and negotiated a mutually beneficial non-aggression pact with the assassin leader in Syria. It is no surprise, then, that with their impressive resume of powerful but distinctly dead victims, the assassins became so feared for their effectiveness that rulers went around continuously wearing chain mail under their extravagant robes. Even Saladin, after his brush with the assassins, took to sleeping in a purpose-built wooden tower rather than a tent, and dismissing anyone from his presence he did not personally recognize. Destruction by the Mongols. Mongke Khan, the great Khan of the Mongol Empire, r. 1251–1259 CE, had made his younger brother ýᴏᴜʀ, died in 1265 CE, viceroy of Iran. ýᴏᴜʀ was given an army and told to go on campaign and expand the empire in the west. This he did with great success, and on the way, he defeated the assassins in 1256 CE by taking their previously thought impregnable castles one by one, including ⴍᴜ괜 The assassins had made the strategic error of carrying out one of their infamous hits on a Mongol commander, ⴍᴜ괜 and the previous great Khan, ⴍᴜʀ, r. 1246–1248 CE, had already singled them out as troublesome insubordinates to the Mongol hegemony. The Mongols were successful thanks to their technologically advanced siege machines and catapults, which could, amongst other missiles, throw gunpowder bombs great distances with accuracy and power. In order to fire at the assassin castles perched on their mountaintops, the Mongols often laboriously climbed an adjacent peak and carried up their catapults and siege crossbows in pieces. From there they were able to fire across at the enemy. The assassins did not passively sit behind their fortification walls, though, and had their own catapults and handheld crossbows, which inflicted significant casualties on the Mongols. Legacy. The medieval assassins might have long gone, but the Nizari Ismailis continued as a branch of Shiite Islam, and their leaders came to be represented by the Aga Khans of Iran from 1817 CE. The current leader or Imam of the Nizari Ismailis is Prince Shah Karim al-Husseini, Aga Khan IV, r. 1957 CE, present. Many of the Ismaili ruined castles can still be seen by those intrepid enough to discover them. Good examples include ⴍᴜ and Masyaf. The sect has also gained a whole new level of awareness thanks to the 2007 CE video game Assassin's Creed and its various sequels, which are loosely based on the Nizari Ismailis.